If you are not in Mr. Brown's art class, you can purchase the curriculum including handouts, worksheets, rubrics, and slideshow for this assignment through the link in the description below. But if you are in Mr. Brown's art class, you're going to need pencil, the handout, and you'll need to follow this video all the way through in order to learn the technique involved in doing this handout. Thank you. I'm going to use a mechanical pencil because it can be done, and I know that a lot of y'all are going to use it. And I'm going to use an eraser that I bought from the dollar store. It actually was like 4 in a pack for $1. So if you don't have an eraser, go to the dollar store and get you one. And this pencil, this mechanical pencil, has an eraser, but I don't like it as much, so I'm going to be using this one. There are a few handouts to choose from, and I'm going to show you which ones you can use. You only have to do one of these worksheets. You can do the A, or the T, or the W, or the E. I'm going to do the W simply because I know nobody else wants to. So I'm going to use the W for my assignment. First thing we want to do is read the instructions carefully. Use the stone letter reference to the left to draw and shade the letter in the box to the right so that it has a full range of value with soft transitions and crisp edges between the values where appropriate. Remember, even though the reference has an outline, we are striving for no outlines. Use your technique from the graphite sphere lesson, the one that came before this, to create edges, not outlines. There's also a rubric on here so you can see what it is you will be graded for, that you'll be graded on. We want to do the best that we can on this, and we want to make it fabulous. So first thing you want to do is make sure your name, date, and block are up here. And I am in first block. You put in the block that you are in and your name. All right, so the first thing we need to do is draw this using some of the methods that we've already learned this year, such as lining it up and simple shape building method. For this one, I'm going to simply line stuff up a little bit, and I'm going to look at how much of the letter is facing this way and how much is facing that way. That's kind of a nice little dividing line. And if I were to put it over here, it would probably be about like that. More on this side, less on this side. Also look at the angle of this W. Remember, we learned this at the beginning of the year, and I'm going to move it over here, sizing it up. Look at the bottom of it. It is on the bottom of the line down here. I want it to be on the bottom of the line, so I'm just going to leave that as is. And then I'm going to look at this angle right here. Now, these are just rough little outlines, but I'm going to use that to help get this whole thing into shape. Over here, it kind of cuts off. There's a little bit of an angle right there. I'm going to put my pencil on it, slide it over, put an angle about right there. Same thing right here. And by the way, you can look at that. That's like half of the height of the letter right there where that point is. So I'm going to put it right here. You're going to do the same sort of thing on the other letters, whichever letter you choose. All right, and then this is divided up into 3 parts because it's a W, right? So there's this, this, and this. So I want to make room for these different parts. I'm just going to kind of rough them out the way I see it here. Now this one looks a little bit larger here than it does there. So I'm going to make that a little bit smaller and that a little bit smaller, and use my big dollar store eraser to erase that. That's where I want it to be. Notice it's not straight up and down, it has sort of an angle to each one of those. So I'm going to do that right here. Also, it comes down, if you divide this, it comes down almost to that line. So if we're going to divide this, it comes down to about right here. Now this is part of the simple shape building method. I'm not doing all the little details yet. I'm just kind of roughing it out where I want the different parts to be. Now it has a kind of a line here and here. Down here at the very bottom in the middle, there is a, oh, by the way, there is some chunks taken off right here that starts about right there. Just kind of roughing them out. They don't have to be totally perfect. Shoot for perfection, but don't stress out if you don't get it just right. Back to my dollar store eraser. I'm going to make this angle a little bit more here, this direction. This is sort of, if you draw a line straight up and down, that's underneath this part right here. So I'm going to put that right there. So basically I'm fixing this whole thing right there. I didn't like the way it was, so I'm going back and fixing it. That's okay. You have to do that sometimes. And then there is a line that goes back this way, and look at the angle of it. Line that angle up. And then there's also an angle right here, back here in the back. And an angle right here, back there in the back of that W. And it's got some chunks taken out of it, so I'm going to include those. I'm going to go in that way a little bit, go back out that way a little bit, down and over. We want it to look like a big chunk of rock. Now up here it's been kind of broken off as well, so we're going to cut this right there. Make this go this way and this go this way. Then you can see like a little line right there. And right there. Remember, we're going to erase a lot of stuff, so eventually all these lines will disappear. These are just my guidelines. There's a little chunk taken out right there as well. There are no outlines in nature, so all right, so this is broken off in here and goes this way, comes back up, goes that way, little line right there, little line right there. Over here, it's also broken off, and then it goes back down, follows that line. There's like a crack in it right there. There's a little chip taken off right here. And a little chip taken off right here. Does it look like a W? Not yet, maybe. I'm going to make this go. There's a little bit of chunk taken out right there as well. So we're going to then down here, a little bit of chunk. Oop, almost forgot that little piece in the middle. Look at where it goes to compared to this line. There's a big space right there. So we're going to leave a big space right here. Put it right, might even have to make it bigger than that, right here. All right, and there is the outline of our W. Now the first thing I want to do is erase some of these guidelines so that they're no longer a problem. So I'm going to take my little dollar store eraser. And erase some of these places. All right, now, even though the reference photo has outlines, when I put value in here, I want to make those outlines go away so that this looks more realistic than that. So I'm going to take some artistic license with this, and I'm going to make it more realistic looking. Another thing that would probably help is if I just kind of lightly erase all of this. I don't want to not be able to see it, but I don't want it to be darker than any values I might be able to put in here. So I'm going to lightly erase all this. I can still see it, but I don't have to I won't have to erase it later. All right, so I'm going to start with the lightest, which is this side right here, and I want it to be dark. I'm just using this mechanical pencil and just lightly filling this in. Round circular motions, and I'm using this real lightly to cover up anything that might look like scribble. You can probably see a lot of scribble right now, but that's because I haven't completely covered it up the way I want to. On the sides, you may have to go, up and down or side to side, but in the middle, you should definitely go in round, light, very light, burnishing-like marks. I just put a piece of paper underneath my handout. So I put one of the other ones just to give me a little bit more comfort as I'm shading. The texture of this mat right here was interfering with my shading. So if you need to put something down underneath your work to keep it from interfering with your shading, please do so. Filling this in. Little, short, small, round burnishing motion. You might say that this is going to take forever. And in one sense, it is going to take a long time. I know what you mean. But anything worth doing and doing well will take a long time. You've got to learn to be a little bit patient with what you do. And I can hear you now saying, well, I don't have any patience. This is how you learn to be patient, by doing things that require patience. I'm just kind of going around and around and around, covering up my scribble marks as much as possible. Notice how there's no outlines over here on the side anymore. There's just this value meets this value. This light gray meets that white. Same thing right here. No more outlines. Just this value meeting the next value, and forming a hard edge in this case. Another way to say it is a crisp edge. This is a crisp edge. For this project, we're not allowed to smear with our fingers. We talked about this in class the other day, where if you smear with your fingers, you are essentially mixing the oils from your hands with the graphite and creating a stain on the paper that you cannot erase very well. It also usually creates kind of a dirty look. And so we want this to be as clean and nice as possible. All right, so there's the front of the W. The next sides are going to be a little bit easier, I think, because they're a little bit darker. And I'm just going to apply a little bit more pressure here to begin with, just to go ahead and differentiate between the value that I did and the value that I'm doing now. And then if I want it to be darker, I can make it darker. build it up a little bit more. And I do want it to be darker. I want there to be some contrast between this and this. I don't want there to be any outlines, and I don't want it to look scribbly. I'm going to leave this alone for right now because it is lighter than the front and lighter than this. So I'm going to leave that little space alone just for the time being. And since this and this are the same, I'm going to come over here and do this one. Remember, no outlines, so whatever I do as far as like the edge goes needs to be light enough that I can match it with my pencil. I'm trying to go around in circles here, but the direction of this space makes it kind of better for straight up and down marks almost. But I still want to kind of go cover up any scribbles that I might have. Ooh. The hardness of my lead wants to create sort of a harsh line when I turned it there. I'm at school doing this lesson, so that's what that bell was. All right, over here, this one and this one are about the same, so I'm going to go ahead and color that in. I'm going to take a little artistic license. Since this is underneath the W, this is like the little channel that runs from front of the W to the back of the W, just like the side here runs from the front to the back. So since this is a little channel, I'm going to go ahead and make this one a little bit darker than I made these two. A little bit darker. Then this one. Now, I cannot have this one and this one and this one being the same value. And I believe over here, you can see that this and this are lighter than this. So we're going to try and make this a little bit darker. Really and truly, this might be easier with a different kind of lead. I think the lead that's in my pencil is HB, which is not the same as 2B. It's a little bit harder, so I'm having a difficult time getting really dark darks with it, but we're going to persevere. Get you a nice number 2 pencil. Nice little circular motions. Now, my hand is going numb. Some of you are probably, if you're working on this while I'm working on it, probably thinking to yourself, your hand's hurting or your hand's going numb. Well, it may be the case. Maybe you just need to take a little break. Not too long a break, because this is still due. My hand is going numb as well, but I'm just kind of persevering through, sort of for the sake of the video, and also just to get it done. I'm sort of tearing up my paper right there. It's because of the hardness of this lead. But I'm going to switch when I do my next assignment. I'm going to switch to a softer lead. This is good for this practice sheet. Perseverance. Some of you may find this really hard. It's okay. Perseverance in the face of adversity. That's the kind of stuff you learn in art class. Perseverance. Just like if you were playing a really hard video game or a really hard athletic challenge of some kind. Maybe you're a weightlifter and you're having to break your record or increase the number of reps. Maybe you're a track runner and you're trying to increase your distance. Patience and perseverance in the face of adversity. That's the lesson to take away from this. That looks pretty scribbly looking, right? I'm going to continue to burnish it a little bit when the numbness, when the feeling comes back to my hand. And I'm just lightly going over any areas that are lighter than I want them to be. Actually, it might not be too bad to have it a little scribbly right there because this is stone, right? We want it to look like stone. Have a little texture there. Wasn't even trying for it. All right. All right. Now, this is a little bit lighter than these, so I'm going to leave that alone for a minute. It's a little bit darker. Right here is a little bit darker than here. Maybe we'll go ahead and fill that in lightly. And then up here, this is almost as dark as this, but not quite, so we're going to make it maybe more like that. The great thing about this being darker than this is I can kind of continue in my scribbling motion even outside the line and it won't be noticed. Try not to get oils from your fingers on your paper or oils from your hand. I want this and this, I want this to be darker than this, so we're going to continue to build that up a little bit right here on the edge. I want there to be some contrast, but no outline. That's pretty good. Notice this is something new. This is totally legitimate. You can do this if you want to. In order to demonstrate the difference between the front and the side, this needs to be darker. But in order to show a full range of values, I'm kind of fading it out as I go towards the back over here, or fading it lighter, so it's darker here and lighter back here. That's okay if you want to do that. You can do the same thing over here. You can make some of this darker and make it fade to lighter as you go. And that'll give it a lot more character. The top here has got a little bit of shadow, a little bit of shading up here. I'm just lightly going over that. And this, I want this to look like it's facing the same direction as that. But I also want it to be lighter than this. So we're going to go back over this a little bit more. No outlines. I think that looks like stone. Tell me that doesn't look like stone. All right, now last but not least, I'm going to add a little bit to the background, because in the rubric it says attention to fabulousness, work ethic. All right. It also says 3D illusion with the no outlines. If I do something to the background, that shows that I am showing some attention to the fabulousness. I'm not afraid to work and keep working if I need to. So I'm going to do a little bit of background right here. I'm actually going to make this darker than the letter itself, and then I'm going to fade it out. The hardness of this pencil doesn't allow it to get very dark, but I think you can see this pretty well. When I do my final project in the next video, I'm going to use a regular number 2 pencil so I can get a little bit darker. I usually use this mechanical pencil for laying out things. You may see that in the next video too. I may use it to lay out, rough sketch the project. Look how good that looks. That darkness makes that pop out. It also helps me to get rid of anything that might be construed as an outline on the outside edge of my W. I don't want this background to look like an outline either, so I want to subtly transition from a dark to a lighter value so that there's no outline right here. Even though I'm pressing down pretty hard right there, I want that to eventually kind of fade out. No outlines. Almost there. And look how much this pops against that black or that dark background. Also, and most importantly, notice there are no outlines. There are no outlines. It is a chunk of rock. Wait until you see the final project that I'm going to do and what it turns out, the way it turns out. Don't forget to take a picture of this. When you do take a picture of it, you want to make sure that your name shows in the picture, that it is your picture that you just drew, that you just shaded. Crop it, and then edit the picture so that the colors look good. Make sure that you are using good lighting, like outdoor lighting. And you can take the picture close to a window will help, or actually take it outside and do it. And then upload it to Google Classroom for me. Thank y'all for watching.